sport is already the ninth chapter, policy area covered by our benchmarking study 2022-2025. We are doing 4 and also in very close cooperation with the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom's Relation of the Netherlands. However, before I present the study objective, all research area, timeframe, and our team, I would like to thank you so much for finding the time to be with us today. What exactly we will do today? We have 3 major points of our meeting. I will have the pleasure to present the introduction. So what exactly we are doing, what countries are covered by our study, what policy area, and then secondly, we will present the research results of the sport chapter, and then we will continue with the presentation of our dashboard and related data to the sport chapter. And our APA team will show you exactly how interactive tool works, where to find it, what kind of data we can find there, and also what is, I think, the most useful point, how to use it effectively. At the end of the event, I will present very quickly what actually we are doing in current 2025 and what's foreseen in 2026 with the benchmarking study. And we plan to finish more or less at 1:30. And as I mentioned already before, during the introduction, we can realize our benchmarking study thanks to the grant from the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Relation of the Netherlands, and we are also implement the entire project together and in very close cooperation with the ministry. And I have the pleasure to present a project leader from the ministry, Mr. Frans van Dongen. And thank you very much, Frans, for being with us today. And I would like to give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Ivona. It's great to work with you and the whole APA team on this international benchmark program on public performance. And I warmly welcome you all at this APA webinar for the study results regarding the public domain sport and the launch of the data dashboard for this domain. My name is Frans van Dongen, as Ivona explained earlier, and I am a program manager of public performance at the Ministry of the Interior and Kingdom Relations in the Netherlands, and I've been the ministry's representative in APA's Board of Governors during the last 10 years. The Dutch Ministry of the Interior has already a long tradition in international benchmarking of public performance going back to the 90s in the last century. We are very happy that we could establish a fruitful relationship with APA a couple of years ago to deepen this tradition with an extensive 4-year benchmark program for 35 countries. We strongly believe that policymakers can learn a lot from international comparisons of public performance in different kind of functional policy domains. And this is not about winners and score lists, it is about identifying mechanisms, policy systems, interventions, and contexts that are relevant to become more successful and get better public citizens value, better outcomes, more efficiency, and more satisfied citizens and entrepreneurs. And a part of the international learning from best practices, it is also valuable to learn from examples of underperformance or failures. It's helpful to learn why specific mechanisms or interventions don't work in specific contexts, and to prevent that these failures will be repeated. Systematically learning from failures is of great value. Further, it is of the greatest importance to bring these kind of study results to the attention of policymakers and stimulate them to use them for purpose of policy design. And therefore, we welcome very much the initiative of APA to organize webinars like this one and to disseminate the study results. We also welcome the initiative of EIPA to give full, flexible, and user-friendly online access to the data of these study results. I'm happy that we will get a demonstration of the online dashboard for the sport data. And it is interesting to see that also the European Commission has started initiatives that support this way of working with the program Building Capacity for Evidence-Based Policy Making. And lastly, I would like to thank our research partner, Niels Esle Bertsgaard, for his achievements with his international benchmark study on sport and his willingness to present the results here. I hope you will have an inspiring webinar and give the floor back to Ivona Kawot. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Franz, for your very kind words and the introduction. And I propose that we continue with the presentation of our EIPA team. And I would like to give the floor to Miranda and Bjorn. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivona. So I'm Miranda. I work in the benchmarking team, mainly in the area related to anything to do with data. I've been working on this project since we started in 2020, 2021. And so later on, we will present our dashboard for this sports chapter. So looking forward to it. Bjorn.
Thank you, Miranda. My name is Bjorn Helbling. I joined the EIPA already 5 years ago, first as digitalization officer, and now I switched to become a research officer. And this was one of my first projects on the faculty side, and I'm really glad that I could help out there with topics like data visualization. And it was interesting, and I hope you like the end result. Thank you. Back to Ivona.
Thank you very much. And I think it's my turn to present myself. My name is Ivona Kawot, and I'm senior expert and the project leader of this benchmarking study. I'm also working here already in EIPA since 17 years. And thanks to this possibility to work with the benchmarking, I have the pleasure also to work with Franz, our EIPA team, and with the best expert from some very prestigious university. And I would like to propose that we continue with the short introduction and presentation of the study objectives, countries, and policy areas covered by our study. So the main objective of the study is, of course, to analyze the performance of public administration in 10 policy areas and in 35 countries. We can see them on the slide. So we agreed with the Ministry of Interior that we will cover all 27 member states of the EU, but apart from that, also UK, Norway, Switzerland, and Iceland. And apart from the European countries, the study also covers Canada, United States, Australia, and New Zealand. We analyzed the performance of public administration in 10 different areas. And as we can see, it's public administration, education, housing, social security system, social safety, economy, infrastructure, also new technologies, social security, employment, income and wealth, environmental protection and climate change, health. And what was agreed, I will see, because another last but not least chapter, sport, culture and participation, which was agreed that it will be separated into 2 chapters. One presented in the sub-study 2024, and culture taking part of the current sub-study 2025. Our benchmarking study is already the 4th edition of the report. The previous ones were published in 2004, 2012, and the third one report was prepared by Dutch Research Institute, SCP, and published in 2015. And our role, what was agreed with the ministry, is to update from one side the third edition and also broaden its perspective. What does it mean? It means that we decided that we will make the analysis of each chapter separately and in depth. Apart from the update of the 2015 report, we also agreed that we will, in addition, evaluate the effectiveness, efficiency, cost effectiveness of all policy areas, as well as satisfaction and trust of citizens in their administration, which is completely new element. In order to deliver the benchmarking study, we are using the conceptual framework, which was a bit, I would say, changed in order to deliver what exactly we agreed with the ministry. Here we can see, and what also Miranda mentioned, and we started to work on the benchmarking study in the beginning of 2021 when we were doing already the research and on the existing data, existing secondary sources of the literature, preparing exactly and writing the entire scope of the study, etc. And because we are doing much more in-depth analysis, we also agreed with the ministry that our benchmarking study will be divided into sub-studies. So we can see all of them in the screen. So 4 chapters in the framework of the sub-study 2022, 3 chapters, but very, I would say, full of the information in 2023. And sport, health, and social security system were decided to be delivered in the sub-study 2024. What I also mentioned just a few seconds ago, we introduced some changes because we changed the title of the 10th chapter, Social Security System, into International Best Practices in Social Security Systems. And also we agreed that sport and culture and participation will be splitted and presented as a separated chapter, sport in 2024 and culture and participation in 2025 report. What we are doing in 2025, we are doing the update of the entire report, entire benchmarking study 2020-25. And we plan also to publish the final report, which will contain more or less 600, 700 pages. So it's quite a big document in February 2026. And we also plan to prepare and organize the final benchmarking conference. So during how exactly we are working together since years. Basically, we are having different coordination teams. So depending if it was a sub-study covering 4 policy areas or 3. So we have 3 or 4 working teams, including partners involved in the sub-study ministry and the EPA team, and also coordination meeting during the year of the delivery. And also we can have possibility of working internal meetings only between partners and our AIPA team. We are doing quantitative analysis and qualitative. So basically, when we are talking about quantitative analysis, we are using already existing external sources of data from 2007 until now, whenever it's, of course, available, and qualitative. So basically, we are using secondary research resources. And our one of the most important element of the benchmarking study, of course, a part of the fundings of each policy area, is our dashboard. And today we are launching dashboard for sport chapter, and it's an interactive dynamic data navigation tool, which is providing insight of the most important data at the glance. So what is also important, where to find all the information. So normally all the study and the dashboard is publicly available on our website. Out there, the benchmarking study. We can see here when we have the flash, so it's the first on the left. And here you can find all sub-studies already published, so 2022, 2023, and 2024. All information about dissemination activities, and also dashboard of the each policy areas we were already implementing during last year and this year. And so because we are recording all of our dissemination activities. So that's more or less it as an introduction. And I have the pleasure to present our next speaker and the author of the sport chapter, full professor at the University of Southeastern Norway, Niels Asle Bergsgaard. And Niels works at the Department of Sport, Physical Education, and Outdoor Studies. And it was a real pleasure to work with you, Niels, and I would like to express also our gratitude for you to be with us today. And please, the floor is yours, and we can start the presentation of the study and sport chapter fundings. So thank you very much, and let's start.
Do you see the now? And then I will just. Do you see a presentation mode now?
No, it's we still see it in the PowerPoint version.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I don't. I try to do it.
Exactly. Sometimes we have problems with this, but now, yes.
Now it's okay.
Perfect. Yes,
yeah, that's good.
Notes version, but on top, if you see the middle button, you can just switch between presenters notes and main screen, and then it should show the correct one.
Yeah.
What I didn't get what you
display settings, the one on the top in the middle on your screen. Yeah.
I can't see any display settings on my screen. But you don't see it now, or do you see it in presentation mode or not?
We see it in the mode where you can have notes for yourself,
Oh,
not in full screen.
But you can also, if you don't have notes, easiest way now would be to right-click inside the slide, and then without notes, something must be there, an option.
okay. Sorry for this. I'll try once more then.
So,
And now, still don't see the presentation mode?
No, but we don't see the notes. So like that, I think it's also okay. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. We
Yeah.
can start.
Okay. I will just present quickly some findings from the sport chapter. My name is Nils Asle Bergstad, as Ivana said, and I'm a professor at the University of Southeastern Norway. And again, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to doing this study and also writing this updated chapter that will be published, I guess, in February or something like that next year. Yeah. Just some introductory remark that the definition here is about sport and recreational practice, but it excludes physical activity when it's, for instance, cycling or walking to work, to studies, etc. And I didn't look specifically into elite sport. So why sports? Just quick, there's a lot of benefits for sport. The one is intrinsic, that is joy, enjoyment, well-being, belonging, and also what you can call more extrinsic benefits, such as integration, community, and especially for this chapter, mental and physical health, and it's especially the physical health part that has been important. So the starting point is that increased public focus, increased public policy on sport and physical activity should be emphasized to promote a healthier lifestyle. There are, of course, some limitations in every study, and also this. I want to mention 35 countries. The data is good for the EU countries, not that good for the rest of the European countries, and even worse for the Anglosphere countries. So it varies which country that are included in the various statistics in the chapter. And the statistics, it varies when it comes to age. Some questionnaires are from 15 years and above, some are 18 years and above. So younger children are not included in this study because there are no comparable data. And of course, it's difficult to measuring between various countries when it comes to sport and exercise. The reliability question, whether studies are conducted in the same way and ask the same questions, is of course important. There's also a problem of self-reported activity, that one reports higher activity than one actually do. One tends to report more physical activity and less drinking when you answer questions like this. And the validity, what is understood by sport, physical activity, and related terms. There is an interesting study from Switzerland, I think, that shows that the culture of the different cantons in Switzerland, and it's expanded to cover all Europe, that says that the concept of sport has been expanded in the Western Europe, but is maybe narrowly understood in the Eastern part of Europe. And that may explain some of the variation when it comes to participation rate. One important outset is, of course, the government involvement and the composition of the sports structure of the sports system in each country. However, earlier studies report that maybe the system isn't that important, or it's difficult to detect what type of system that has most effect. So here's a quote from Nicholson and et al., who had an earlier study of several countries. Sport participation rate do not appear to be correlated to a nation's sports structure or delivery system. Well, we still try to find comparable data, still try to make comparison, and maybe find something that can be pinpointed as important factors. The first figure is just what government and also private expenditure on sport and recreation. The figure is just the government expenditure on sport and recreational activities in percent of the gross development GDP. And main thing is that it follows quite the pattern where the northern and western and to the lesser extent Southern European came on top, and the Central and Eastern Europe countries are below. But there are a lot of exceptions here. As you can see, Hungary and Estonia, for instance, scores quite well when it comes to percentage of GDP. If one includes the private spending, household spending, yeah, Ivona?
Sorry, because we still can see only the first slide of your presentation.
Sorry.
Only the first one. So, and when we are talking about GDP, etc., I suppose that
yeah, I'm sorry.
Another slide because we can't
to do something about that.
If we keep that shared screen, but you just stop the presentation itself.
Yep.
Now we should be on top. So if you move one slide up front or to the back, just to double check that we are alive.
Yes, but do you see any changes now?
So for the moment we see slide 5, but if you go now,
that's okay.
Yeah, can you briefly go to slide 4 just to double check, not that we're stuck again? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
We're live.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for that again. Yes, and here we see this. If we combine the household expenditure and the government expenditure, well, illustrates even more that the wealthiest country, Northern and Western European countries, come out on top and invest the most, while the Southern European countries and the Central and Eastern European countries invest less. So just quick to the outcome. You see now we see the slides changed.
Yes, perfect.
Yes, that's good. That's good. Here's a figure how often do you exercise or play sport, and it's quite a consistent pattern. And that's I use several measures when it comes to participation in sport, both physical exercise or performing health-enhancing physical activity, and they all shows more or less the same consistent pattern. The highest rates of participation are observed in the Northern and Western countries, while the lowest rates are observed in the Southern and Eastern European countries. The mean for all European countries is that 4 out of 10 individuals engage in sport and physical exercise at least once a week. And this is relatively low in light of the challenges associated with physical inactivity and obesity. The next slide shows some changes over time and region. First, we look at the general government expenditure on recreational and sporting services in percent of the GDP. And here we see that there was going up between 2013 and 2019, 2021. But then something happened, at least in the Northern European countries, but also, as we see in Southern Europe, it went down again. But overall, it's the percentage is more or less the same or a little increase. When we look at the other figure, the average participation in sporting event, at least once the last 12 months by region and year, we see a substantial or an increase in Northern Europe and Western Europe between 2006 and 2015, but a substantial decrease after 2015 to 2022. We have no figures for the years in between, so that's the figure we have to look at. And this downfall or this drop is more, I will guess, mainly due to the pandemic, or at least that's the main explanation that is put forward in the chapter. It's the data from Norway indicates that it's going up again, but I don't know about the European data. 2022 is the last year where there are available statistics. I also looked at the effectiveness, and then I used some correlation between what is input, the percentage of GDP, and the output, the exercise or play sport at least once a week in 2022. And here you see that there's quite weak correlation between those two. But we also see that the Nordic countries in green, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and Netherlands and Luxembourg are quite high above the correlation line. That indicates that they get more back from their investment than the other countries. The other figures looks at the private expenditure or the household expenditure on sport and exercise, and here we see a much stronger correlation. And of course, that's nearly self-evident, because what people are using on sport, for instance, membership fees, buying equipment, etc., is directly connected to the actual sport participation or participation in sport and exercise. So, and then I also have done a subsequent analysis of government spending in euro per inhabitant. So not a percentage of the GDP, but in euro per inhabitant. And there we find a rather strong correlation between public expenditure and exercise or play sport. So wealth, the country's wealth and how much money they use have effect. But when it comes to prioritization of sport inside the whole economy or inside the government budget, the effect or the correlation between participation and input variables are weaker. So there is effect when you, or how much euro each government is spending has an effect. But when it comes to prioritization of money to sport, the effect is less. I also looked at some other variables than just financial input. Here is a figure showing the quality of governance, or the European Quality Index of Good Governance in 2017, and it's distributed along that and with a participation rate as the bars. So here we see a pattern that is quite clear, that the better or the higher the score on the European Quality Index of Good Governance, the higher participation rate. This indicates that there is a lot of variables that are explaining a high participation rate. So if we include a public expenditure, general wealth, education level, membership in sports clubs, which region you're a part of in Europe, and the quality of governance, then we find that there's the contextual variables seems to explain a lot. So a later study, a regression analysis, shows that especially the quality of governance stood out as a strong explanatory variable. Of course, one should again be cautious in interpreting these findings, because it's cross-sectional data, so it's not a longitudinal studies and it's not an experimental study, but at least the correlation or the association between the variables are quite strong. So to conclude, when public expenditure as percentage of GDP is considered as an indicator of the government's prioritization of sport and exercise, there is no consistent pattern. The Nordic countries and Netherlands demonstrate high level of participation and have a higher return on investment compared to the European average. But general wealth may be regarded as a crucial factor rather than the government's prioritization of sport and exercise in comparison to other policy sectors. So maybe the main conclusion is that, for instance, social cohesion and satisfaction may be the outcome of a welfare policy regime or a necessary precursor to the establishment of such regime. That is to say that there are a lot of factors, often dating back before the establishment of a distinct welfare regime, such as strong civic traditions or cultural values. And these factors may play a more prominent role in shaping the outcome when it comes to sports participation. So again, factors such as wealth, quality of governance, culture, educational attainment, civic traditions. Here one can also include the infrastructure, the transport system, etc., are playing a vital role when it comes to explaining the participation levels between countries, while various sports policy regimes account for a relatively smaller portion of the observed differences. Thank you. And
thank you very much, Niels, for this very interesting presentation. But it was very interesting. And if you all agree, I would propose that we continue with the dashboard. So Miranda and Björn, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivana, and also thank you, Niels, for providing us with some context for the sports chapter and the key findings of the chapter. I'm going to start by presenting just how you can get to the dashboard, and then we will go into the sports chapter findings on their own. So, of course, first you can come to our website, www.aipa.eu. And then there is a section where everything related to this benchmarking study you can find, and it's at the top. So here it will take you to a landing page that provides you with all this information about the benchmarking itself. You can download all the various sub-studies with the various chapters that Ivana mentioned. Also this year we have published separately a few chapters in the update. So these you can also find here, as well as all the information about the benchmarking study, the policy areas that we looked into, upcoming events. Here we're talking about the sports chapter, and at the end of this event, the links will be updated. But you may be interested in other topical areas like environmental protection and climate change, or health, for example, and you can find all of this information on the first landing page. As you can see, you also have more information about the project leaders, etc. At the top of the screen, we have various dashboards. We have been working on these for quite a few years now, I would say. And just for your information, for example, if you go to the public administration chapter, you'll be able to download, you'll be able to watch a recording of the video, the presentation of the results, etc., as Niels did today, but this one for the specific chapter that you're interested in. maybe you don't want the whole benchmarking, you're just interested in that particular chapter, then you can also download that here. And then there's the dashboard for each of the different policy areas or domains that we looked at in this overarching benchmarking study. So based on that, I think I will go to the meat of the matter, the more important element of today, which is about sports. And so I will click on there, and we get to the sports chapter. Again, you can download this chapter for further in-depth reading on what Niels presented just now. And we can start by looking at the dashboard itself. So the idea is to have a sort of interactive way of going through the data. And we have two different journeys for that. One starts from a stylized version of the framework that was used in the chapter. And the other is a much more free rein way of interacting with the data. And Bjorn will present that in a minute. But I will start with sort of just showing how we think it could be interesting to walk through the data for this chapter. So as I mentioned, the whole benchmarking project, its foundation is on this framework of input, output, outcomes. We've also been very interested in looking into trust and satisfaction and also performance, and in this case, effectiveness. So, for example, you may be interested in outputs related to sports. And so therefore, by going to that section, you will be taken to a page which explains how output is defined in this context, and also the various indicators mentioned in the chapter. So for example, by clicking on the first page, we get to this visualization of the data around the percentage employed in sports sector as a percentage of the total employment. And here we're looking at Austria, and we can see that they have 6%. And we have here the sample average, which is related to the countries under investigation, all of the countries under investigation in the benchmarking chapter. But also you will see the average for the region itself, so that you can see how the country is performing, both as compared to all the countries under investigation in this benchmarking, but also as compared to its region. And sometimes there are regional differences that can be seen. So that's the explanatory value of having these three values or bars in this visualization. But maybe you're interested in particularly looking at, for example, the Netherlands. And so we can go to the top of the screen and select the country that you're interested in, and then can see the values for that country on its own. At the bottom of the screen, there is the stylized framework again, so that you can use as a sort of navigation. So perhaps we're interested in looking at inputs, then we can go to that page and of course continue on looking at the journeys. And based on the data available, the sort of visualization has been different. So here we have a temporal graph showing over time how a particular indicator developed. So this is the more step-by-step way through the data. And as I mentioned earlier, if I go back to the home page, we also have included a more interactive way of dealing or looking at the data and interacting with it, and Bjorn will present that.
Okay, thank you, Miranda. So for that second journey, where the aim of us was to really give you as much as possible the flexibility to dive into different regions or different indicators. So that page looks very busy, but that was with the goal to give you as much as possible the flexibility. And as you can see here, it always gives you like an immediate overview of the data. For example, which data points are available. And as you see, if we just switch to another input vector, input indicator, like so another data type, you see immediately, okay, how do the amounts of euros in these years, actually here it's only 1 year available, so there was 1 year of data collection that was used in that report. As you see, it's automatically adaptable. Here we have a couple of years available. For this indicator, it's 1 year. So all the elements on the dashboard will adapt towards what sort of input indicator you want to look at. And you see here, okay, we have 1 year available. The absolute values per country, it will always give you the unit of measurement. And if you want to have a bit more information how it's calculated, you have here the information field that will automatically adapt towards your input, so that you have there some direct information, some overview information. For some of the indicators, it makes sense to really jump into the report itself. But if you're used to and working in that field, they are probably relatively self-explanatory. And yeah, so the idea is to give you like a playground to look into where could be possible relations, as already mentioned briefly with the expert. Often, if you look at it as these cross-sectionals, these are indications that there could be something. So to have like a jumping off board to hopefully, sorry, 1 second. Luckily, it's not sharing this part. That is moving on my screen. So to have a jumping off point to later look, to see, okay, that could be an interesting section to look into with further research. These comparisons, I'm a very visual person, so I prefer a more visual cue. And as you see, in a second it loads. So for the moment, for this input indicator, you see for which countries data is available and for which year points. And these visualizations, they always take automatically an average from everything that is selected. So please bear in mind that as long as you have a lot of selections, it will make an average out of these during these visualizations. You always see the absolute values here. Just to keep that in mind. And as you see, it is responsive towards the towards your inputs. And for example, if we would go compare Northern and Western Europe in that regard, you see here, the darker it is, the higher the value is. That means it really also, it's not a qualitative statement, it's really about, okay, the higher the value is. So the more there are inputs, yes, you have to decide yourself, is that now a good thing or a bad thing? It just indicates darker shades, more of it, and compared to others. And yeah, you can jump around from the different categories of data, and then you just select a new indicator from that category. So maybe we're interested in the share of the adult population that performs. And here we should have, there it goes, it updates. So here you see, you have 2 years of data available. So it may be interesting to look, okay, how does the data develop over that time frame? So most of the countries, they saw a slight increase of people doing heavy exercises, if I remember correctly. Yes. Although it seems like the gym was less used in Iceland in the most recent period, so maybe they found more outdoor activities Could be, but that's what I meant. So you could look at first indications for then jump into for more direct research. And yeah, just briefly, yeah, Miranda, please.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, you were saying about the countries with the highest value.
Yeah, and sorry, that I nearly forgot. So it also always, especially if more countries are selected, it will always give you an indication there from the highest and lowest value in the current selection. And if we take all of the countries, yeah, it will adapt then dynamically. And just to double check, you always see here which data points are available. So we try to give you as much as possible flexibility to just slice and dice in the available data that underlies the research report. So, and that's from my side. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the great job and the presentation. And very few words, as mentioned in the beginning of our dissemination activity, what actually is foreseen in 2025 and 26. So we already last year started to work on the presentation of the update of the entire study, all policy areas, including sport chapter. So we continue to work with Niels as well as with all partners involved since 2022 in the research. And the final report will be published at the end of our final benchmarking conference in February 2026. I would like to invite you to visit our website, what already Miranda explained in details where to find what exactly, etc. And I also wanted to say that our dashboard related to the sport chapter is already fully operational at our website. So thank you so much once again for being with us today, and I wish you a very nice afternoon. And of course, I hope to see you in February at the occasion of our final conference. So thank you and see you soon and enjoy your afternoon.